Alright guys, welcome back. In this video we're going to populate our lobby widget with more data. And the first thing we need to add is the players, right? We need to actually have the players displayed, and that requires us to have another widget, and that's going to be of the type class uListView. Call this guy player list. Okay. The uList view is a special type of widget that's able to populate with a bunch of list entries, and here we're just going to ask to get the player array from the game instance, okay, from the game state as well. But there is also a hidden problem because the game state doesn't necessarily have the player array replicated, right? So another problem. Oh, before we do that, also that we need to make sure that we actually have the entry set up, because if you have that now and then we just compile, let me close this and then recompile, we'll have one error, which is the list view needs to have some sort of a list entry to be able to populate its atoms internally. It's by design that way, so we'll have to make sure that we create another class to support that. In case you guys haven't learned what this is, right? Basically, this list view is able to populate a bunch of atoms in the list, but that atom have to have implement one particular interface called user object atom entry something, and then override a function to react to things that changes to those entries, like when they're created, when they're selected, those kind of things. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and create one. I'm gonna go make a new class called user widget. Okay, I'm gonna call this guy player entry, lobby player entry maybe. Create class. This is not necessarily lobby player entry if you want it to be representing something that can be in the gameplay, right? So the naming might be wrong. Reload all here, and it's still compiling. One thing I want to show you here is that in our lobby, WP lobby there, when we compile, we get an arrow there. It's saying, hey, we need a player list, which is going to be here of the type list view. I'm okay with that. I'm going to drag that over here and then put that in the center maybe, and then give it 500 and 500 for the size, maybe to the side or to the middle, to the side, I guess. All right, and then just position it. Okay, and name that to be player list. You would assume that this will just work, but you got another arrow saying that there is no entry widget class. Okay, all right. So if you look at the widget and then look at the list view, you can see. Let's look at the header file. It's saying, hey, to make a widget usable as an entry in the list view, it must inherit from the adduser object list entry interface, right? That's the one we need to have. Okay, and we need to add in the header here for our lobby player entry. So include blueprint, if I'm not mistaken. User object list entry, we need to implement that interface. Okay, alrighty. So now we can override one of the functions, which is called the native unlist atoms object set. This is called when the entry is created for the list view. Okay, and protected. Now, if you want it to be able to be done in Blueprint, you need to call the super version. And because the super is this guy, so we need to call the corresponding one here. So that will be the namespace, and then native object selection changed. Oh, selection changed object. It's going to be native list atom object set and list atom object. Okay. Alrighty. And then let's take a look at our lobby widget. Okay, so when we are getting the game state has a particular thing called the player array. Right. And what we do is we ask our list view, or player list rather. We wanted to, before we do that, we need to actually include it. Include components and then list view, and then we can say set atoms. We pass that in. Okay. So this is saying, hey, all the atoms here, right? Our atoms here in the list atoms will be coming from the game state player array. What's wrong there? Oh, it's get. I need to do the set list atoms. So basically, the player array is an array of player state. Okay, and then for every player state in the array, we're going to make an atom for the player list. And when that atom is created, it's going to create by calling this function native on list atom set. Okay, and this is where we cast that list atom object, which will be those individual player state. Okay. So let me include that, a player state, or we can make it better. I guess we can make our own player state because I need to remember something else as well. So back here to our editor here, let me actually create another class. USFun, actually player state. Not player start, player state. Fun player state. Ooh. Player state. Okay, well, it's doing that. We can go back here to our. Well, it cannot do anything there. Okay. Let's do it here then. So the this player state, build failed because it doesn't know what the player state is. Okay, that's fine. We need to go to the lobby widget, I believe, and we need to include game framework, I believe, player state, because it doesn't know what player state type is, so it's assuming that's not a U object there, but it is, so that's the problem. Okay, let's try again. I'm gonna go close the editor and then just compile it from scratch one more time. One more time. Now it's happy, right? So the intro will contain a player state, and I want it to be this USFun player state. So let me include that. Fun player state. Okay. Now we need to cast it. I believe it's A. USFun player state. State equals to cast, and then the list atom object. Right. Now if we have that, okay, we need to get the player name out of it, and so we need to have something in here. I'm gonna go create a U property in the private section. Meta equals to and widget. Class U text block. Say player name text. So this is the player name text, and then we have that set text, which will require us to include components text block. Set text, and then we can ask the player state get player name. This should be populated already. Oh, well, has a text from. This one returns a F string. Alrighty. So text will be set, right, with that player state's player name should be populated with the login account, right, your name from Epic Games. So everything should be fine there. Okay, so basically what's happening again is that when we are doing this in our lobby entry or lobby widget here, rather, we're asking the game state to give us all the player, right, the player array. And then that will be used to populate every atom there. When it's creating every individual atom, it's passing in that every individual player state in the player array, right? When that's in there, right, and then we can actually grab the name and put it into the text there. That's the idea here. But there's one little caveat here. Again, we don't have the confidence always that the player array is replicated properly, right? This one is replicated, as you can see now, right? Maintained on both server and clients, so it is replicated, right? But not always guaranteed to be there when we're constructing the widget. And always there's going to be new player joining in, right? So you cannot just do it right here right away. You need to actually make sure that you're constantly checking it. Now I don't want to have it in a tick because it's going to take forever. I mean, take a lot to just do that every tick, because we need to actually recreate the whole list again. So instead, we need to create a periodical check. I'm going to create a f timer handle. Timer. The good thing is that this is not going through internet. We're basically constantly asking this local player array, right, which will be replicated over time. So we're just checking it here periodically on the client side. I'm gonna call this guy player list update timer delegate timer handle. Okay, and then when we are doing the native construct, we might want to make sure that we create a timer here. So get world, get timer manager. This is when I'm confused with the blueprint. The blueprint doesn't have this for some reason. Set timer, and the timer handle will be handle there in rate. I think I make that a hard-coded one there. Oh, actually, we need to pass in the function we want to call ulobby widget refresh player list, right? And then 1 second and repeat. Okay. And then we have that function. Yeah, the function void refresh player list. So this will be called every second, right? We just refresh it every second, which should be a pretty light operation because we're not really trying to do it every tick, right? That should be fine. And then we just ask again the player list set list atom to be the game state player array, if the game state exists, of course, which should always be there. And then we just have that. Alrighty. Of course, this if check doesn't really make any sense because this is a raw pointer. View property. If it's garbage collected, the raw pointer will still be some dangling pointer unless we mark it U property. Be careful about that. Okay, this should be the mechanic there. We just, you know, theoretically check the player array and use that to populate our player list. And again, in a player list, it's going to use our lobby player entry. And then when there is a new one added in, we just cast it to the player state and then update the name. Right, that's 14 minutes already. So I'm going to stop the video now. In the next one, we're going to actually try to create the UI and get it to work. All right, see you guys next time.